here is the latest Star Citizen Live with a whole bunch of ship news that we'll be covering in depth for the next, probably hour and a half.
It's where we take about 30 minutes out of our time to sit down with one of our CIG developers and make them answer questions from you, the Star Citizen community. In this case, our wonderful Chinese community. Somebody, I didn't get the name, sent us a massive, wonderful list of questions covering a huge variety of topics. Obviously, while we're hard at work getting the next release of Star Citizen out, working towards the closing of Squadron 42, whatnot, we can't pull a whole bunch of people necessary to get that full breadth of questions that you guys sent out. We were able to snag longtime friend and human meat puppet.
You guys think this is going to be a regular thing? Do you think they're going to split the community and do specific shows and stuff for, I guess, English-speaking audiences, and then specific shows and stuff for Chinese-speaking audience, or Mandarin, or I don't know which specific language, but do you think this is a special sort of thing, or are they going to start to do this regularly? Because I'm wondering, how does that work?
Vehicle director John Crew on the show. John, say hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Human meat puppet here.
Human meat puppet here. To answer your questions related to vehicles and vehicle gameplay and stuff. So with that, we're going to jump right in, because I imagine there's a bunch of people sitting in a big convention hall and everything, probably don't got the most comfortable chairs, and all right, Jared, just get to it. What if we told a story right now? Would that be? No, okay, we'll get right to it. So, vehicle gameplay questions from the Chinese community with John Crew. In questions in no particular order. Right off the bat, will there be more types of ground vehicles?
Yes. There's obviously, we have a range of ground vehicles at the moment, but they're pretty much a select few manufacturers and either wheeled, tank tracks, and a couple of hover ones, but they don't really cover the full range. I know you've had Alberto on. Mm-hmm. SCL in the past doing
the chopper,
the chopper, and the Origin hover tank. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to say which ones we want to do.
He means the Battlefield 2142 hover tank. That's what he really means.
More in the sort of gaps we have, let's say combat hover vehicles rather than transport ones.
Yeah, I've always had I feel like we've been doing this for 10 years now. I feel like at some point you and I have had casual conversations about some kind of mobile base that kind of hovers around, like a floating platform with doors and rooms and stuff like that. Something more akin to to a proper ship size, like a Cutlass size or a Freelancer size, but ground and hovering. So I always remember, I grew up with G.I. Joe and stuff, and those mobile base things, like the Rolling Thunder. Rolling Thunder would be a great name, by the way, especially if it hovers, which just really confuse people. Something like that. I think there's a
Rolling
lot of
Thunder, name of your sex tape.
It's definitely something we've talked about and looked at in the past. We have obviously ground vehicle garages and we have ship hangars, and the slight problem that has always somewhat interfered with that plan of a larger ground vehicle is our ground vehicle garages aren't big enough. Our ship hangars are, but not necessarily every ship hangar you can hover or drive a vehicle out of.
Especially not the ones with
the ones with the ceiling exits. So it's coming up with a solution to that, and then we could have maybe not. I always forget the film with the big roving cities.
Mortal Engines.
Mortal Engines. I'm not gonna say that big, but
probably not.
Probably not that big.
But we've both been here long enough. Never to say never, ever. Plus, I think if we're being real candid and honest, I think we need more gameplay systems that utilize ground vehicle technologies. There's a couple. I was just had a meeting with Rick Porter, design director for the PU last week, where I wanted to pitch if we get, when weather comes online and stuff, being able to keep ships out, but having giant Sturgis style hog wild kind of events that require hundreds of ground vehicles in place and stuff would be super cool. And that's just casual conversation between me and the design director. It's not a commitment to an idea, but
promise.
I think there's a lot more we can do to incentivize the use of ground vehicles.
Yeah, we have a lot of ground vehicles at the moment, but there isn't
Hey,
a lot of
I'm working on a
use
vehicle.
and the use they have.
I'm working on a video about this right now because the MTC is a fantastic vehicle. It's just got two problems. One with itself and one with the state of the game. Would love if ground vehicles were more useful in this game.
We have a lot of ground vehicles at the moment, but there isn't a lot of use, and the use they have sometimes is not ideal.
Yeah. So when we can incentivize that use more, then I think it'll be a natural kind of progression. Yeah, let's find out what other kind of ground vehicles we can add to this. Like that. All right. How do you design ship living quarters? What equipment and features are essential for gold standard?
So in terms of gold standard, living quarters really depends on the role of the ship. Obviously, some ships don't have living quarters, and that really is a soft gate for how far and long you can use that ship. If you don't have living quarters, eventually food, drink, hygiene, and I guess tiredness sort of become your limiting factors. So if you want a ship to go a long distance, you need living quarters, and then they come in different scales. We have the bare bones one.
Dude, this is such... Oh, man. Okay, I'm going to let him finish.
That currently let you log in and out. Beyond that, if you have food, you need somewhere to get rid of the food when it's...
Dude, listen to how it's being talked about, man.
Beyond that, if you have food, you need somewhere to get rid of the food when it's being processed. So they all have toilets or showers. And then for the more grandiose and luxurious ships, you go from, here's a bunk bed with a food machine in the wall, and you sit and eat your food, or stand and eat your food, to you have a room which has a seat, bed, toilet. Military ships follow real world military ships, and everyone doesn't have their own quarters. You have bunk rooms with shared mess and galley, all the way up to luxury ships like the 890, where everyone has essentially their own apartment with everything in it. So it really depends on the role of the ship and the type of the ship. And it's got to have a bed. If it has food, it's got to have toilets. If it's a toilet, it might as well have a shower there as well.
And this is all in preparation for gameplay systems that will come online.
Yeah, at the moment, they're very much role-play things. And we spend a lot of time internally arguing about toilets and showers.
We're not going to put a when on this, but if by the time your time here is done and my time here is done, if we don't have poop gameplay, I'm going to be...
Poop when?
There'll be one other director who will be very upset about that as well if we don't have that.
This is the face of somebody who wants poop gameplay. And Chris, if you're there watching, I'm sorry.
Trying to space poop, dude. They have to acknowledge that this will create scenarios where you're in a light fight or dogfighting and your guy needs to shit so bad you die. Listen, I think I'm hoping that poop can't kill you. Oh man. Or at least like you're not dogfighting for long enough where the poop does kill you. Oh no. Or maybe instead of that, it just makes you get real dirty and gross and people don't want to talk to you. Space diapers built into all flight suits in the game now. Toilet blades for $14. Nonsense, dude. Toilet paper for $14. And then you're gonna get a top Hurston employee CEO to come out and just throw the toilet paper at you. Tier 0 injury in my pants.
On the other side of this, single seat fighters, who obviously don't have living quarters or anything, will single seat fighters and similar ships allow for in-cockpit
pooping? That's the next thing he was going to say. In-cockpit pooping. They're looking out for you, Wrangle McDangle. Very appropriate name.
Eating and drinking. I love seeing this question right now because there's this, this thing that happens where, you're running, you're getting to your ship, you're having to take off to clear an LZ or whatever, and you didn't get a chance to stop and top up your vitals.
Your poop.
Beforehand.
Sorry,
there's nothing worse than you're flying in your Avenger or whatever and you die of thirst.
Dying of thirst.
Because you can't pop a cerveza.
don't drink and fly.
Yeah. Well.
Actually, it's a lot of fun.
So
you can't hit much in space. That's the best place to drink and fly.
will single-seat fighters in similar ships allow cockpit drinking and eating?
For me personally, yes, that is something I want. Ultimately, that is not my area of responsibility. It's more of a overall game direction thing. But I don't see why we wouldn't allow that in the future.
Are there plans for more ship weapon types?
To be honest, it sounds like the kind of thing that would come in during their relaxed seated thing. Remember during CitizenCon 2023, one of the things they wanted was like, when you get into the ship, you're in a relaxed mode so you can interact with different things. Just sounds like it's kind of built into that sort of system.
Obviously, we're seeing in the FPS weapons, the Volt weapons, which we talked about for a while, are finally making their journey from Squadron to the PU. Are there additional ship weapon types that are percolating in someone's head here?
There are a couple that, if I get my dates right, people will be seeing very soon in game. Again, things trickling from Squadron into Star Citizen. Beyond that, we haven't really looked into new weapon types. It's more expanding the range of the existing ones. So at a very simplistic level, we have ballistic ones, we have energy ones, and distortion ones. And then within that, you have cannons, repeaters, Gatlings, and we have gaps in those lineups because you also have the size ranges within that. So it's filling those out, giving them different flavors first before we chuck in another archetype.
The FPS weapons are actually in a fairly good place because of this sort of thing, but I think ship weapons still don't really feel that distinct. How many people in chat actually focus on what kind of weapons they're using for their ship versus don't? I know there are a lot of people who do, but I'm curious to see, it's like what percentage of it. Obviously, it's not going to give us any sort of data in the chat that's reliable. I just feel like the weapons in the game for ship systems right now are still, you're mostly just looking for weapon type and not specific model. You guys do, depending on ship size, about the model, and if it matches your paint. Does it look good? Gumbo, you're saying waiting for engineering. I don't have any data to back this up, but I do think that they are missing a lot of variety that gets people more excited to choose what they want or to find what they want. Even if you find like a cool weapon, it still doesn't really feel like it's that different that you're like, yeah, I use this. And I want like a really large caliber ballistic Gatling gun, you know? Sometimes I just want to be shooting my guns and hear this like the Warthog chain gun had such a nice sound to it in Halo Combat Evolved. Something like that. And then sometimes I want to switch over to like some kind of mystical pulse firing weapon that sounds really weird in sci-fi. And still don't really quite have that. I do think that what are they called? What's the distortion weapons that are the NBDs? NBDs, BDSs, whatever. Those look really good. Still just don't quite have the look and the feel or the sound. But here's what they had to talk about when it came to this kind of stuff, because they do talk a little bit about this back in the day. This is more for FPS energy and stuff, but it still gives you an idea of the direction they're headed in when it comes to damage types in this game.
And so when you actually add all that together, and then you're looking at, say, the damage types that we've already talked about in the weapons, well, everything we add to the game needs a counter, because otherwise, what's the point? So when you're looking at, say, the physical, energy, distortion, and chemical, there needs to be a counteract. So, we're going to need armor that has different resistances to provide different encounters. So if you want that combat armor, maybe that's best in class in terms of physical, but maybe in terms of the utilitarian adventurer, that's best in class in terms of energy damage or chemical, because you're going into these harsh environments. And so what we want to do is we want to have these meaningful choices where you're going to these, going to buy armor, and you're having the same decision making. Going, okay, should I get that one? Well, that gives me all this stuff, and okay, maybe I'll get that one. And then you go, okay, maybe I'm going to get both. But then in the world of physicalized inventory, you're like, well, I can't just get onto the planet and have 20 armors. You're going to have to make real decisions. And that's where it really ties into the gameplay. But before I go on too long, I'll pass over to my esteemed colleague, Jeremiah, and he will continue on some of the visuals.
Thank you.
So yeah, quick reference. this was always kind of part of the plan, was to make sure to double down on damage types, and that's not surprising for the type of game it is. But I think they still have a lot of work to do on that. That's for sure.
For me, I mean, obviously, I'm a Star Wars guy and whatever, but
That was 2019.
my affinity for Star Trek has always made me want beam weapons. We talk about beam weapons. I feel like it comes up every year. And maybe not for you don't want to see a Gladius flying around with a beam out of its nose or whatever. But for these larger ships, like a Hammerhead and above, the ability to have like beams and whatever would just be such a cool visual. And that's one of the things I every once in a while I just kind of hope. I'm like, is this the year of beam weapons?
I think this is the year of beam weapons.
Oh, you think this is the year of beam weapons? I faked her.
This was like days before they showed up with the Idris beam weapon, right?
Reaction there. I was aware that it's a year of beam weapons. Can ballistic weapons have quick magazine swaps? Currently, their sustainability is limited to resupply or full weapon replacement. Is this intentional for balancing energy in ballistic weapons?
Yes, that is something we definitely want to do. Chris mentioned this to me again last week before. Going back to the previous topic about filling in the gaps, we're looking at filling in some of those gaps, and some of them are ballistic ones. And as part of the design for them, they do have, or will have, physical magazines that you can reload. So if they're on the outside of, say, your Gladius, maybe Gladius is a bad example, let's go Avenger, when they run out, you will need to go and restock. Well, if you brought spare magazines or ammo housings with you, you can go replace them. A friend could go replace them with their supplies. Not every ship will be like that. It's not, say, practical on a Hammerhead to have all 24 guns ballistic and someone's going to spend all their time outside the ship, EVAing around in combat trying to plug magazines in. For some ships, they will have essentially an internal reloading mechanism, and that will take the format of, there will be a designated area in the ship which should hopefully be near the cargo supply, and it's similar to how base building will work, in that you'll be taking your resources, in this case boxes of ammo, feeding it into the machine, which will put it into the ship's internal storage, and then the ship itself will resupply to the weapons that need it. So rather than you having to manage 24 individual magazines, someone...
So how does that work for the Vulcan? If we got the Aegis Vulcan, which uses drones to deliver ammo to ships, I could see the refueling working because you got one place for that. But if you do have ballistics all over your Hammerhead, how do you reload all? Do you have to reload them from each separate place if it's on the outside, or will they also have like a centralized ammo repository on the exterior too? Could do that. That wouldn't make it too much more complicated, but again, you got to find out where to fit that on all these ships.
We'll just be feeding the crates of ammo in as needed.
My understanding is that that's the only real reason to have children.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. It doesn't change because it's private for the Chinese community. Can the Mobi-Glass ship interface include remote control of doors, elevators, and cargo ramps? Oh, we've been talking about that for years.
Desperately want this to be a thing, pushing on it internally. Again, it's not directly in my wheelhouse, so it's subject to other teams' schedules and directions. But yes, being able to unlock, lock, open doors from your Mobi-Glass for your ship.
Yeah, it's hard. At the beginning of this year, this is a good time as any to reiterate this. You know, at the beginning of this year, we had Benoit on and talked about the big change in focus of this year. This year's focus for feature teams is on closing Squadron 42 out.
Squadron 42.
Improve.
That's what the supporter exclusive is about this week, this month. It's the constant block to Star Citizen that is Squadron 42, but also the eventual savior. I don't have any wood to knock on.
Improving stability and performance without introducing the stability and hits that come with new features. We don't know how long that's going to last, but we're definitely still in that period right now where we're still refining, we're still fixing up the PU, stuff like this. So it's not a It's not an anytime soon kind of thing. Just to put a little expectations management on it. But a lot of these things, we've got this laundry list. There's things that we're all chomping at the bit.
I know that the team that's doing it has a lot of stuff, and it's a lot of stuff that players have asked for, like the 3D landing camera on the radar. Like, they're doing that before this.
Yeah, but it's always been, it's
Who's
the
working
choice
on that though? Is that vehicle experience? Is that UI team? Probably not UI team.
Years previous has always been go to the new feature, and this year we've made the choice to go to stability, to go to performance like this, and that benefit is very apparent already. And there's still more work to do, and there's still more that we're going to continue to do. So while it can sometimes be hard to accept the weight for this thing that everybody wants and whatnot, I still think it's the right decision this year, and I think a lot of folks would probably agree. This focus on stability and performance this year is paramount, and then the eye of development Sauron will turn back to new features for the PU at some point. Can weapon and missile hardpoints carry other tools like fuel tanks or electronic pods?
That is something, not those two specific things in particular, but again, not to give too much away, but in the very near future, we're going to start experimenting with some alternative options for what missile racks can carry.
Very near. It was so very near that it's in the past for us now. I wish everything that was very near for Star Citizen was really that close. It'd be such a joyous time. Like, but yeah, they're doing that. I still wonder how much they're going to allow us to switch up utility mounts too. It used to be back in the day that you could look at a utility mount like a tractor beam on a ship, and they talk about how other utility mounts could go on there, like a mining laser or something. That'd be cool. Imagine putting a mining laser on a Nomad.
Right. Yeah, you're of course talking about Invictus Launch.
Yes.
Yeah. So you'll see a couple new items that you can swap out both on the exterior of ships on hardpoints and interior.
Yep.
Some component upgrades and stuff. So look out for that.
Yeah.
We looked and we saw.
It's getting very confusing.
Hey, there's a video for Con 42. Honestly, I was going to just read it.
Using filming this in advance.
If there is, please send it to a mod.
Flying to be here with everyone in this room, wherever I am.
Oh, yes. Say something to future you.
Hello, please get a haircut before you go to China.
Currently, marine seats on ships feel underutilized. Will they have unique functions in the future?
Assuming this is drop seats. Yes, they sort of do already, but it's sort of underutilized or unnoticed feature in that we do impart G-forces onto loose actors within ships. So for drop ships, if you have 20 people crammed in the back of a Valkyrie and the pilot does a hard turn, you're all ragdolling and falling over. It doesn't happen really as much as we want or the way we want it. It's very binary at the moment, like big impulse happens, everyone falls over. Whereas the way Chris has talked to me about it is your gravity generator on ships, which is not yet a physicalized item but will be, sort of lags in its compensation of gravity. So rather than it being too much gravity, everyone fall over, it's hard turn, gravity's failing, everything starts getting loose, and if it continues, then people start not necessarily falling over, but almost like EVAing inside the ship because the gravity cannot keep up with the force and the directions. So then being sat in the seats, you're not having to deal with any of that. But the counter of that is we want to make dropships be more utilized. At the moment, they're probably not tanky enough.
These are like the kind of things that I wonder how much they'll be impacted as this game becomes slightly more casual in its design. Because people really want to be able to do anything with any ship, and requiring people to have the right amount of seats for the folks in their ship is like, you got to pick what's going to happen if not. Are these people just going to get thrown off their feet? Are they going to get injured? Are they going to have to like pick up stuff that was on their body? What is the consequence? Because if the consequence is just, oh, you're thrown onto the ground, then you could just lay down on the ground and everybody can still be on a ship that's not meant to carry that many people to the right place. And I wonder, because I know they want to put restrictions and consequences in this game for choices you make. That's part of the reason I've loved it all this time. One of the biggest reasons I always follow it. But I do wonder how big those consequences will be and if they actually will make a difference for people in these contexts.
Like, they don't have enough health to survive the drop-in versus other ships, so we've got to bump that up to get people using them.
Dropships are literally the living manifestation of putting all your eggs in one basket.
They need to survive the drop for people to bother using them. So it's a sort of cyclical thing.
The Zeus's design is impressive, especially the interior. Will the Galaxy follow a similar style? Boy, I hope so.
Yes, obviously we talked about it. CitizenCon doing the RSI ships in sort of sequence. So we've done the Polaris, doing the Perseus at the moment, and then the Galaxy will be after. The difference in the Galaxy is it's a civilian ship. It's not the RSI military theme. So the Polaris and Perseus share a lot of visual cues together and materials and lighting. It does take bits from the Zeus, but not everything. And you will see more of the Zeus styling in the Galaxy, and other RSI ships this year will have that Zeus aesthetic rather than the Polaris and Perseus one.
Yeah, I love that.
The poor Galaxy, man. Where is that ship?
The RSI interior, the Zeus interior. You know, I personally, I'm not a big fan of the Dorito shape, but the interior just knocked me on my butt.
Yeah.
And what I love the Zeus interior. So you mentioned the Perseus. I read on Reddit that that's coming in Invictus this year.
It's not. Don't believe everything.
Yes, it is. That and the Ironclad.
Will ships like the Caterpillar and Kraken have cargo lift functionality? Loading and unloading on the ground is currently cumbersome.
The Idris also is apparently coming, but like, who would believe that?
The Caterpillar is an interesting.
The Caterpillar is an interesting pain point. So we recently changed the side doors to go down to the ground to sort of improve that, and it sort of improved some things, made other things worse. That's not how we want to do it. I think retrospectively, if we were designing the Caterpillar today, it would not have doors like that.
Knowing what we know today versus what we knew in 2015.
I am convinced that the Caterpillar is their most, at least John Crew's most regretful design in the game. Do you guys think there is any other? Because I feel like the Caterpillar is the one that always comes up, from the escape module thing that they have to figure out to the difficult shape of it with the length and how problematic that was when it first came out in landing, to the fact that it has these three-stage door elevators. It's like, this ship is constantly coming up as an actual technical issue to the game. And he's always talking about how like he never would have had it be this way if they had come back and done it again. Redeemer, only because they didn't design it. But the Redeemer seems like it just does what it needs to do. Like, it still works. The Reclaimer is definitely a pretty bad one, but I don't think he talks about the Reclaimer very much. Susie. Freelancer and Starfarer needs some work. Definitely, but both of those I think also still do their job pretty well. I'm talking about like ships that actually cause them problems, like headaches. The Hull C was another one. What was another one? The Reclaimer is definitely one of those. What are some other ships that they talk about like that? It mainly has been the Hull C and the Caterpillar that I can remember. The Banu Merchantman, I think that one's mostly caused them problems because they just don't know how to design it. The Banu design style seems to have escaped them for the large ships. The Banu Merchantman in design-wise, or in function-wise, is just a Kraken privateer, right? Reclaimer and Caterpillar, then, the two most problematic ship designs in the game, at least as far as getting them to work correctly. Poor Reclaimer, man.
We're sort of hamstrung by that design. Whether we'll like entirely redo that, I don't know yet. But we do, if it stays in that design, we do still want to have the 3-state doors. The current limitation with the existing door tech, and I saw someone moaning on Reddit about this today, doors in Star Citizen have two states, open or closed. The Caterpillar doors, side doors, are doors, so they are closed or they're open, and it's just where that open state is. So we chose to move it all the way down to the ground to improve things. We can't currently add a third interim state, so open, and keep it there.
Yeah.
We do want to have that state, but that, again, it's a feature. Anyone that's ever worked in games knows how horrendously complicated doors are. It's the big meme.
Doors and elevators.
Doors and elevators.
There's a lot of videos about it you can find.
And we can't use elevators or transit because they're essentially using platforms, which we could get them to rotate and translate, but you wouldn't be able to have all the synchronized animation for all the pistons on the side. So that's why we have to use doors. And that's why we're stuck with two states.
Trying to think about how those patch notes would go off. We've added 8 elevators to your Caterpillar.
Yeah.
No! The deadliest ship in the verse.
And then the Kraken, I honestly cannot remember right now how the main entranceway to the...
It's kind of funny to have to deal with just having a badly designed ship. Not in the sense that it's bad, like it doesn't make sense, but it's bad and like it creates such a headache for the game to get it working.
Cargo bay is. I think it does have a lift on the bottom.
I think it just kind of tips on its side.
And it just all falls out.
Drops everything.
But we are going to be looking again at the Kraken concept soon, because hopefully towards the end of this year, it will be going into pre-production.
Oh.
You just...
Oh. What didn't they say something about the ironclad leading to the Kraken? Was that a thing, or am I making that up in my head?
Gave somebody a heart attack there. Towards the end of this year, going into production.
Going into pre-production.
Pre-production, yeah. It's like not even actually designing it or putting it together.
Not coming out this year. Read my lips. No new Kraken. Wow, that's a George H.W. Bush reference.
Wow.
I'm old. Can the Reclaimer... Oh, here's another fun one. Can the Reclaimer's rear cargo platform be adjusted to avoid blocking 8 SCU plus of cargo?
Again, another ship, knowing what we know today, would not exist in its current form.
And somebody said in chat, it's not like he designed these ships. It's just... It really captures the problem that they deal with this game, in that they did not have the funding to make the features, so they had to sell the ships that were going to depend on the features that they needed to fund. Then they got the funding, and now they've made the features, but then the ships that they sold to fund those features don't fit the features, so they have to remake the ships, and it's like, what a Star Citizen problem to have. It sucks. I don't really blame them. It happens. The Reclaimer did seem like it was going to be able to salvage, but the game changed from underneath the Reclaimer, and now here we are.
The Reclaimer is an interesting one. I'm aware of that issue. It's something, if I can find someone free to do it, but it's a snowball effect with the Reclaimer. Everything is, the way it was built back in the day is not conducive to quick and easy changes. It's sort of, you change that, you end up having to change a lot of the rear rooms, and this is an interesting quirk we found when we did the Hull C. So obviously the Hull C took forever to come out. We did a lot of the work 2017, 18, and then we waited years for the features to be ready. And when we came back to it, the way we build ships now is different to then.
Oh yeah.
And the rooms we hadn't done, we did, and the two clashed visually significantly. So we sort of ended up having to downgrade the current art style and slightly up-res the old art style to make it not look so jarring, and the Reclaimer would suffer from the same thing. So in my opinion, if there's something quick and easy we can do, we'll do it. But that whole interior needs a complete, not redo, but reimagining.
Newer.
I wonder what the plan is for the Claw as well. You know, there's something to be said about selling these ships based on a cool feature that honestly would have brought in maybe 2 to 10% more people buying that ship than if they had sold it as a very basic ship that only has a laser that does salvaging work, which the Reclaimer was not designed in that way. So I'm interested in seeing what they do to use Maelstrom to make the fracturing part of salvage still an interesting thing to do with the Reclaimer. But it is disappointing when these designs have to change so much from what they're originally sold as. All the new ships are similar in design now, flat angles or misc. You better put some respect on Origin's name. Going against your boy like that. But yeah, most ship manufacturers do use more sharp angles. I think that's kind of mathematical, though. Sharp angles are a lot easier to make, no? Hey, Crusader also. Crusader isn't sharp. They're quite nice and balanced. They Reclaimer a huge mouth and a munch animation.
Citizens might not know, folks who have followed the project for 13 years would definitely be able to tell folks about how process and procedure have changed and evolved over the years. You know, the way we make anything in 2016 was not the way we were thinking about doing it in 2012. It's not the way that we learned to do it in 2020, and it's not the way that we've come to understand things in 2025. There's a reason we call it game development, not game construction. Drink. You said the thing, and whatnot. It's so many of these ships. I can't help but notice the Caterpillar, the whole scene. I think these are old Jim Martin ships who I love. Who was at the very beginning, along with Ryan Church, developing these things before we had things like metrics, before we understood all of our game mechanics and how they would actually function versus how we imagined they would function and stuff like this. So yeah, I think we've started seeing, obviously we've started seeing Mark IIs and stuff with like the Hornets and stuff like this. And I imagine some ships will probably just get a Mark II and whatnot. Other ships like the Reclaimer, the Caterpillar need some more TLC.
Yeah. I think that's the very first time they've ever said that. At least, I know it's not Jared confirming that. It's just saying, I think. But I do believe in the company's history, they've never hinted at any other ship getting a Mark II, except for the Hornets and the Zeus, which was, lore.
Other ships like the Reclaimer, the Caterpillar, need some more TLC, need some more, time going back and fixing those things.
Yeah, the question that is starting to prop up more and more is what necessitates or drives the reason for a Mark II versus just update the existing one. And really that comes down to, we can do a Mark II for something that functions, and we just want to sort of deprecate the visual style of it. The Hornets, for example, there's nothing wrong with the Mark I Hornets. We just wanted to have the cooler Mark II Hornets visually out there. But for things like the Reclaimer, if we made a Mark II Reclaimer, we've still got to make the Mark I Reclaimer actually function how it's supposed to function with the salvage mechanic. At which point, that's redoing a lot of it.
Yeah.
So there won't be like a Mark II Reclaimer. The amount of work will just be an updated Reclaimer.
Yeah, that's kind of important to note, is like they still have to update the actual ship they made. The Hornet only had a Mark II model because they had literally already made the Mark II model for Squadron 42. It existed. It had to be made. It was planned from the beginning. So while Jared said, I think there will be other Mark IIs, I don't think John even said anything here that signifies there will be. There always could be. I just don't think there's much reason for them to do it because it's just another ship. They could just make a variant instead.
Will just be
like they could have made a Valkyrie Mark II, but why? Why wouldn't you just make an Asgard and have them be two different ships and make it a little bit more different than what maybe a Mark II would look like?
Updated Reclaimer.
Just a couple more questions and we'll wrap up here. Modules are often expensive optional additions. Will modules for ships like the Galaxy be available for in-game currency upon release, so players aren't stuck with half-functional ships?
Nope.
The modules, it's an interesting one. part of it's an economy reason, part of it's a marketing reason, and part of it is
it's pledge law and stuff like this.
The Retaliator is really the only one that we've released with modules, and it sort of had an awkward. There was two ways to get a Retaliator over time. There was the original pledge, which it was a bomber. It wasn't modular.
Yeah.
And then there's the modular version. When that was announced, you couldn't get the bomber one anymore. So people were pledging for the base one with no modules. And then you opted into the modules after that. So when we came to deliver it, we had to deliver both of them. So there was a lot of people that had the bomber one as like a loanership for their one without it and were surprised that they didn't have anything. And the current rules set it's the same as any new ship, that it will be available in-game
after
X amount of time from its actual release. So
I know the amount of time right now. I just can't remember it specifically. I don't want to say the wrong thing right now, but it comes down to when there's, again, I'm not going to get into it, but there's general marketing stuff, and then there's actually some laws and crowdfunding and pledge that you have to deliver the thing to those people who paid money before you can give it to stuff like that and whatever. So I don't have to worry about that stuff, which is why I don't have the information.
And I don't know if it's the case right now, but
so this is an interesting point. For a few different reasons, and I don't know what the specifics of something like that are. But basically, what's being said here is that they sell the ships, and they have a level of exclusivity to them, where the people who paid money for them can use them, and then they come into the game one patch later, a month later, 6 months, or 6 weeks later, 3 months later. I don't know how long it is, but he's saying part of that is legal. And I don't remember who it was, but somebody mentioned then if that's a legal thing, it would be interesting to see why they can let people rent these ships for free at events like IAE or Invictus, even though that would technically still be giving it to people who didn't pay for it. Maybe because it's temporary, that's not the same. I'm not really sure. But I also think this is interesting because somebody one of my supporters actually did call me out for basically not reacting the same way to the module situation as I did with the blades. And to be honest, I still don't know. I don't really remember how it was when the modules came out, but not sure I feel the same way about them that I do about ship components themselves. And I think having a exclusivity or even any like sort of payment method on the components and like the means of customizing the ships is a little bit more weird. Even then though, if they do release modules for ships that have specific gameplay in them, I hope that they don't try to do this exclusivity period with that as well. Just blocking off the gameplay like that. I think it was acceptable when it came to something like salvage coming in with PES because everything was all over the place. But at this point, I think they need to be a little bit better about releasing that kind of stuff.
The Retaliator modules, maybe they're not in the in-game shops. Yeah. Maybe there might be a technical reason why they're not in there. I genuinely don't know, but we can look into it.
About the Constellation, no, I don't think that's going to get a Mark II. I think they're just going to fix that.
Some of those have been around for long enough now.
Those should have passed the date requirements.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Can ship hull damage and breakage effects, as seen in Squadron 42, that's Maelstrom, be implemented in the PU?
Yes, that is the plan. Maelstrom is full speed ahead in Squadron. My team and a lot of other teams are working on it currently. I think they are about, at the time of recording, about...
If you don't know about Maelstrom, I'll give you a quick look. Maelstrom is their procedural damage simulator. It is going to be used for ships, items, buildings, and other objects in the game. It's coming along, but it's still taking some time. Here's some examples of how it will work in terms of ship damage.
Beams to be able to model stress and strain. Breakable clusters are hierarchical. They embed the hierarchy physical geometry. The entire is showing a breakable
So the idea behind this is, as you could kind of see in these videos back here, it's basically just going to be representing a whole bunch of different things. Stress, strain, identity. You're even going to know your ship's avocado number. Really, all the different things that you need to know how objects will fail under force. And this will be applied to a lot of different things. We've seen it with cover. We've actually seen in the last Star Citizen or CitizenCon how AI will respond to cover depleting because of this system. Throwbacks to Battlefield Bad Company. It should be pretty fun, but it's going to be extremely interesting to see how this is balanced in such an open environment and how they're going to handle things getting replaced and repaired in the meantime when this does happen. But that's Maelstrom. When they're talking about something like that, it's currently being worked on for Squadron 42, and I think they're about to tell us about how it's going to come into Star Citizen.
Full speed ahead in Squadron. My team and a lot of other teams are working on it currently. I think they are about, at the time of recording, about, I'm going to say 70% of the way through converting
that's more than I would have expected.
The ships required for Squadron.
Oh, okay.
Into Maelstrom. So
Jared was as surprised as all the rest of us there.
It's been built in a way that facilitates, we take the existing damage model that's in Star Citizen, press a few buttons, that's the Maelstrom version. It visually behaves the same, but it's using all the physical behaviors under the hood of it. That's converted to Maelstrom. That's the 70% quote. After that, Tech Art and Art can go in and chop it up more if they wish.
Make it better,
make
more
it
dynamic.
better, shinier, break into more parts, make it more believable. And that's been done on a case-by-case basis. So we're doing all the hero ships, all the ships you fly and fight the most are getting that first. So the actual fully Maelstromed conversion is a lot lower percentage. But overall, we're quite a long way through it. There's a lot of ships used in Squadron, but a lot of them are only used once. So they're just going to get the PU damage model ported to Maelstrom, done.
I'm going to give you a little behind the scenes. It was just a week or two ago when I messaged.
Okay, so is that saying that they're running on? Sorry, I need to hear a little bit of that again. Sorry. Did they actually explain the 300 bugs fixed number, or did they just say we fixed 300? What are you referring to? 300 bugs fixed?
It's been built in a way that facilitates, we take the existing damage model that's in Star Citizen,
right?
Press a few buttons, that's the Maelstrom version. It visually behaves the same, but it's using all the physical behaviors under the hood of it. That's converted to Maelstrom. That's the 70% quote.
Okay.
After that, Tech Art and Art can go in and chop it up more if they wish.
Make it better,
make
more
it
dynamic.
better, shinier, break into more parts, make it more believable. And that's been done on a case-by-case basis. So we're doing all the hero ships, all the ships you fly and fight the most are getting that first. So the actual fully Maelstromed conversion is a lot lower percentage. But overall, we're quite a long way.
70% of the way through the overall conversion, then they have to do specific work on each ship in Squadron.
Through it. There's a lot of ships used in Squadron, but a lot of them are only used once. So they're just going to get the PU damage model ported to Maelstrom, done.
I'm going to give you a little behind the scenes.
No, it's not done in the PU. It's actually pretty far away in the PU is what it sounds like.
It was just a week or two ago when I messaged Sean about something or whatever, and Jesse looked at me. He's like, "I'm in Maelstrom hell. Can I get to it later?" And I'm like, "Okay."
Yeah. It's a whole new way of thinking about setup. Again, like you said just before, things we did years ago. In case of Maelstrom, things we did weeks ago is not how we need to do things going forwards.
Yeah. But it's definitely underway in progress.
Yeah, and it all does genuinely work, and it behaves physically correctly, and you see the visual result. Like all those ships in the CitizenCon Squadron gameplay video, those were all Maelstrom, and they break up differently to how things do in the PU now.
Cool.
How is weight calculated, and what are its effects, such as ship overloading? We were just talking about that in...
Yeah, it's all related. There's two answers to this. Both are the correct answer, but it depends what project you're working on. So obviously in Squadron it's Maelstrom, and that does a lot of the work for you. So depending on the material you apply to the ship, or per parts of the ship, like you could have left wing be one material, right wing be another. You set the thickness of it. It calculates the surface area of that part based on the physics mesh of it. Does some clever maths for the thickness value provided, and then that part is that weight. So you apply a titanium wing, it's lighter than a steel wing, and it all just goes into the physics engine and just works TM. Star Citizen is different because we don't have Maelstrom, and that it's more designery numbered. And the process we've done for years is you take a rough volume of the ship, and 3ds Max calculates the volume of it, and we put it into an Excel that I made years ago. And that you take that volume, you take away the volume of the interior space, which is another mesh. That gives you a volume of the hull.
This shell, yeah.
Multiply that by a density value we decided, which has some plus and minus, very like plus 5% for.
I freaking hate volume calculations. Integrals suck.
Aegis, because it's a combat manufacturer versus Origin, which is all high tech and carbon fibery, plasticky stuff. That gives you a mass for the entire ship, and you put that on the entire ship, and then the game engine goes, about 50% of the volume of this ship is this part, so I'm going to put 50% of that mass here. And that's why occasionally you see things behave oddly, because the physics is misinterpreted. Maybe the asset has a slightly dodgy physics proxy, and it thinks it's got 5% of the mass when it should have 50% of the mass, and it flies off into space, or the reverse. So again, that's the reason for having Maelstrom, is that those designer numbers go away to be created with ones that are actually fully derived from the assets themselves. And it does impact flight in both games.
That's yet another one of those things that I'm like, man, how are not only how are the more casual players of Star Citizen going to react to this, how is the game going to communicate it to you? That you're overweight, or your weight is in a certain part of the ship that maybe is not efficient, that you're burning more fuel because the weight's on the back of your ship instead of the center. Like, are people gonna be able to figure that out and make it work for them?
In Star Citizen, if you strip weapons and components off your ship, you will fly slightly faster. The ships are quite heavy, so removing a 100-kilo gun off your 60-ton spaceship isn't going to move the needle that much, but it does. And cargo will impact it. It doesn't currently for any ship where the cargo grid is inside, because we're intentionally ignoring that at the moment. But for ships like the Hull C, Hull A, the Raft now, everyone's new favourite ship, if it's on the outside of a ship, it does account for that. So you will feel like if you've loaded your Raft up with gold, it's going to fly a lot slower and heavier than one that is empty.
Yeah.
I love that. Can't wait. Combining that with control surfaces. Ooh, VTOL thrusters. Like, you get that real specialized atmospheric delivery service. You know, nobody can match you. Players teaching players has been a thing. I do hope that the game can teach the players some things. I don't want to have to tell someone in their first 30 seconds of their playthrough when they get in the ship that they have to go and ask someone why they're flying weird. But I do agree. It helps to be able to team up with others and learn this stuff quickly. Yeah, and the heat mechanics.
Yeah. Well, when Maelstrom fully comes online, all these calculations are more accurate and reliable and stuff like this. I've always thought it would be cool that, you know, we got these folks like Atmo and like XGR and stuff that do the races stuff, like to do a cargo race. Like you have to load up 200 tons of cargo, whatever. However you want to do it. You want to do it on the exterior, like whatever. But there has to be that much cargo in the ship and whatever, just to kind of affect the handling. What I'm watching, and you have to kit out your ship and swap out your components as necessary, you know, to help with it and stuff like this. And
chop bits off your ship to reduce the weight.
Like maybe you clip a bit of your ship intentionally, so that breaks off. It's like, I don't need that to go, and you pick up a little more speed and stuff like that. It's I'm always more interested in like the cannonball run style, anything you can do to turn a race on its head and make.
Throw everything that's not tied down out the cargo hatch. We gotta go. Except for it doesn't matter because you only had a couple boxes to ditch and you got like a 10-ton spaceship.
Get more crazy, I suppose. Two more questions. I want to ask one. This actually isn't on the list. I'm going to add one.
Here we go.
I'm going to add one right now.
Oh boy!
Yesterday, in I think it was yesterday in the PTU, folks saw some handling changes.
Yes.
To capital ships.
Yeah.
I think at that point it's only rolled out for the Polaris and whatnot.
Yeah.
Whether it goes to the 890 jump, so that's I don't know the answer.
Oh no! Did they nerf the Polaris to sell Idris?
These handling changes. The Polaris has sort of been everywhere and everyone's enemy for a little bit. It's like we see the posts where people are like, oh, this would have been great if I didn't have to encounter a Polaris right there, because they're just too damn fast.
Yeah.
They're too damn fast. They're too damn zippy.
Not anymore.
And not anymore. So talk to me about this change that we're making.
Yeah. So out of the box, the Polaris was too fast and too agile. We were a bit concerned about making it too slow as like the first proper military capital ship in the game, but we played it safe too far on the agility side now, and hopefully now what is live at the time people are watching this is a much slower. It's still the Polaris in lore was a fast capital ship. It was supposed to be fast and agile, but that's relative
to other capital ships.
Other capitals. So
not to a Gladius.
Yeah, you're not going to be dogfighting Hornets in your Polaris. So we did slow it down pretty much in all aspects in terms of speed, boost, rotational rates and accelerations. And done the same across the other capital ships. So technically the only other capital ship is the 890. And the Reclaimer's is sort of weird. It wasn't a capital ship, but it now has capital items. But just we've gone back and looked at them all and made sure they're all.
It's also affecting.
They've nerfed not just the Polaris, but the Reclaimer and the 890 jump, just so that we buy Idris Elba, whatever multiple Idris are. I can't. No, I'm kidding, guys. I'm kidding. I'm just joking with this.
The NPC Idrises.
NPC Idrises,
When people steal an Idris, now they're going to notice that it handles differently.
The same whenever an NPC Javelin turns up. They are all slower. They're not designed to be good in atmosphere. So hopefully all the sights of Polaris's nose down over mining craters should start disappearing, because bringing a capital ship into atmosphere needs to be a big event. This is a big commitment. You should be a sitting duck. Some of them can't even get back out of atmosphere unless they have dedicated VTOLs. So
tell us about VTOL.
These big ships everywhere. They should be big events when you come across them, not 10 a penny everywhere.
Tell us about VTOL, John.
There's a line, if I remember, in the squadron script from the pilot of I can't remember if it's the Javelin or the Idris, where they're like, a fighter is supposed to be reactive, and a capital ship you're supposed to plan. You're supposed to plan every maneuver, 3 steps ahead and whatnot. And that's been in the squadron script since like 2015 when I was recorded. So I'm personally excited. I'm personally excited to see these things behave more like these giant fucking. Almost used my.
Get the beep, live beep.
Almost used as one for the whole year, I think it is. I don't even know if he gets to say that on here.
Translating it. When you're translating this, make it not a bad word. I'm excited to see them more lumbering and more imposing and more and more like a whale, like a whale in space, as opposed to.
I think there's other levers we're going to start pulling as well on them in terms of like fuel and insurance timers, because they are big events. Like if you're bringing one out, sure, you can use it as your daily driver. There will be downsides and consequences to that if you don't protect it.
And of course, this is not the first set of changes. This won't be the last set of changes. These are just the next set of changes. The beautiful thing about Star Citizen and running a live environment in the middle of our development is that we get to try a thing and then let it go for a month and try a thing and let it go for a month and stuff like this. With this new release cadence this year, we've already done 4 patches this year. We're about to do our 5th one by the time folks watch this, which is insane. We're not even halfway through the year yet. There'll be a lot more opportunities to try something, tweak it, try something, tweak it, try something.
We have a lot of ships in the game. There's still a fair amount to come.
Yeah.
So it's always a delicate balancing act between balancing for the game we have now
and the game
we have in the future. Yeah. And sometimes we go a bit too close one way or the other. So you'll see things like, oh, this isn't that better than the others.
Yeah.
And then we have to do a realignment to spread out the range. Like we did a pass recently on the heavy fighters to sort of, this is all the F8 owners complaining about it, but to make space for there to be a slow, heavy, tanky one and a fast one relative for a heavy fighter, and gaps in there to slot other options in.
Yeah.
And it's the same across all of them. And that range is going to grow and contract as more ships get added in the game.
Yeah. I feel like Zoomy Polaris was us being just as excited to get it out as as players were, and let folks have fun with it in the But I feel like this change was always there.
Yeah,
it was always on the horizon.
It was always coming.
So
it was just a case of when we did it.
And as new flight characteristics, I know what the one starts with J. I keep wanting to say Juke. It's not Juke.
Jerk.
Jerk.
Yeah.
Yes. As Jerk comes online, so that'll change how
Jerk and control surfaces will change the landscape again.
Yeah. Ooh, let's talk more about that.
So it just I want to caution people against doom and gloom. When you see these changes come out 1 month, remember there's still work being done. Jerk and control surfaces.
Jerk.
And the new almost monthly cadence of releases this entire year means that we get opportunities to try something and try something and try something and try something.
Yeah.
So
it's crazy, guys. We have an actual ton of ship systems that still are going to come to the game. And I think the saving grace is that most of these ship systems have actually been in the works for a while when we used to talk about them. Like, I kid you, I just want to put this more into perspective because it's going to sound like just talk. Let's go back to, let's say, CitizenCon 2019 here. And like, for instance, where even was that? Like for this demo, right? They're talking about the damage types and like the different types of actual stuff that they want to have in here, like power and stuff. But it wasn't until, and even more recently than this, I can search for the Inside Star Citizen episode back then. Oh God, which one was it? I had to search for Count Disco to find this video. Like this kind of stuff. This is 2020, right? The other thing I was just showing you is 2019. I could find a whole bunch of other examples of things that were being shown around this time that were being shown as the beginning of what to expect. I mean, even these outposts. Like, these are all of the very beginnings of so many different systems they've been working on. And so many of those systems have been getting updates throughout the years, but are finally starting to come online. I mean, this is like, we're also seeing things like the Cargo Refactor. That was one of these systems. Salvage was one of these systems. Jump Points was one of these systems. But also things like the jerk settings, or control surfaces, or Maelstrom, or engineering are all super long-term things that all started around this sort of 2018 to 2020 period. And they're kind of starting to come to fruition now. And I think it's later than they wanted it to be. It's later than we wanted, for sure. I do think, though, that we're in like a significant period for Star Citizen where a lot of this stuff is happening. And that's why every single week it feels like something different is drama. because you guys, many of you have been here for a while. You know that it's always been dramatic to follow this game and be in the community. But as of late, the things that are changing are so consequential and such big deals that more people have an opinion on it. So it feels so much more chaotic and like there's so much more conversation and drama, which I think is a good thing. Much better that we're talking about the dynamics of the gameplay they're adding than whether or not the freaking like sand looks like real sand. You know, these are things that matter. So it's cool that we're in that period, but I do think that we're in that period because all these things are happening right now. And I'm hoping, at least going by what they're saying here, that they do have plans for at least some more good testing in the near future of the next wave of these significant systems that we've been waiting for.
Last question before I'll let you go here. We've got a lot of good information. This episode is obviously going to the members of our Chinese community, to those big events that I've never been invited to. Tyler, I want to go.
He'll be standing right next to me. Come find me, and that'll be Tyler Whitkin.
We're gonna release this to the public sometime during Invictus and whatnot, because it's everybody deserves to have the information. We're giving these questions came from the Chinese community. We're gonna give them their first shot at seeing them and stuff like that. It was a nice little thing we can do. I want to ask you about the ships that are coming this year.
See, he said it's a nice little thing we can do. Maybe it's just like they're just doing it for this special occasion.
Well, we've got a lot of good information here. I want something that folks aren't expecting. Can you tell me, just name for me, one ship that's coming this year that folks might not know about?
Let's go for the RSI Meteor.
The RSI Meteor.
Meteor?
What?
Meteor? Make the dinosaur. I'm sorry. It's a pretty funny joke Mrs. Tomato had from like a short form video back in the day. And it was like somebody, I think it was like, I don't know, God telling God something. I don't know. He's like, hey, the dinosaurs are looking a little small. How are they, or no, he's like, how are they doing now? And then God is like, what do you mean, how are they doing? He's like, I told you to make them meteor. It's like, you told me to make them a meteor. He's like, I told you to make them meteor. I think it's funny. Yeah, clap. It's a good joke. Jesus. Anyways, we can continue.
What is it?
Yeah, I'm just
Show it punches above its weight. Get another drinking.
RSI Meteor just drops a Macho Man elbow.
Glass cannon punches above its weight. Carrot killer. I don't know what else.
Cool. The RSI Meteor.
Yeah.
So look forward to that at some point later this year, and I want to see the Reddit thread where people are wondering I want to see what they can evoke from the name and manufacturer alone, and see who's right.
If it's another combat ship,
thank you for watching, everybody. This has been Star Citizen Not So Live with John Crew. And of course, if you're watching it a little bit later during Invictus, we hope you found the show informative and delightful, as John Crew always is. You want to go spend some time with your puppet? You haven't visited your puppet.
I haven't visited. Shall I go get my puppet?
You want to go get it right now?
I'll go get it right now.
Go ahead. You've ignored him. You've had your child since November of last year, and you've done nothing with him. You don't visit. You certainly don't send alimony or anything.
Which is just like a new spaceship, right?
There you go. They brought you back. Oh, now
We'll go back to.
Okay.
This is just as awkward as it is.
Well, John, you are many things. You are not a puppeteer.
No. Got to find where my mouth is inside it.
I know where's mouth.
There we go.
There you go. Right.
It's so funny to see somebody hold a puppet of themselves that looks like this. He just looks so like content with his job. Like this, it's just like, I'm here. I'm ready to share the info. And he also looks satisfied with whatever it was that he's already shared. He's like, no, we're not doing the 600i rework. Don't talk to me anymore.
Say something John
I
Crew
love
would
it.
never say.
I hate Drake ships.
Don't think that quite fits the mandate. All right,
Why'd
folks,
you
thanks for
lie?
watching. Take care. We'll see you next week for, I don't know when this airs, but public. We'll see you for another show. There's always another show.
Yeah, honestly, I feel like these are, because this actually came out right around 4.0, right? I feel like then when they modeled this puppet, it was during his just deep pre 4.0 depression phase where it's just nothing was well.
Bye, everybody.
Yeah, the puppet literally was just from a joke. Oh, post-credit scene.
All right. Thanks. Bye.
Is that the jerk gameplay that they were talking about?
But public. We'll see you for another show. There's always another show. Bye, everybody.
Such bad waving.
All right. Thanks.
No more post credits. All right, cheers. So that's our first video. We're gonna check out Con 42 after this. That was some good good information. Definitely some stuff. I think a little bit of stuff of consequence there, but it was a lot of it was stuff we kind of know already. Just a little bit of clarification. We'll see where it goes.